Sunday morning edition of the Anaheim Calling Podcast. It's not very often that I get to say Sunday morning edition, but here we are to break down what was maybe one of the most entertaining games of the Ducks season so far. The Ducks winning a Saturday matinee affair 4-3 over the New York Rangers in exciting fashion, coming back late in the game, a Hampus Lindholm equalizer with just under 2 minutes left, and then ultimately a shootout victory. So it was a pretty fun game to watch. Jake, are you still feeling the good vibes of that win?
Yeah, it was definitely a very good win. Exciting game. I mean, for a game that started off so hopeless with two quick goals against to set the Ducks down 2-0, and it was almost like, here we go again. They came back and they played a really solid game. If they were able to kind of just not have those 2 goals in the beginning, it would have been a completely different game. They would have won in regulation, but they played well. They deserved this win.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just a couple of quick notes before we actually get into the game itself. So Sam Carrick sent down to the AHL before the game started. I mean, not that that's necessarily groundbreaking news, but it's something to note. New looking lines too going into this game. So we saw Henrik reunited with Raquel and Silverberg, but maybe more interestingly, after seeing Sam Steele's responsibilities kind of downgraded the last few games, being on the wing next to Getzlaf, Scratch, just really all over the place. He's back centering his own line and a kid line at that with Max Comtois and Troy Terry. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but it turned out to be a great decision by Dallas Eakins.
Yeah, it 100% did. The kid line looked great. They were probably the best line for the Ducks last night.
Yeah, they were.
Or yesterday, not night.
Yeah. And then maybe the biggest surprise of this lineup wasn't the kid line. It wasn't Henrik going back. It wasn't any of those things. It was Corbin and Holzer getting scratched. Something that I don't know off the top of my head how many times we've seen this season, but it's been few and far between. And so instead of Holzer on that third pairing, we'd see Michael Del Zotto alongside Josh Mahura, which I found kind of interesting that Mahura would be the one to stay in as opposed to him coming out for one of the veterans, because this season – Corbin and Holzer has played in 28 total games. And so if you look at the Ducks overall, and they've played 33 games. So he's only been scratched / not played 5 times. So it's a rare occurrence when Corbin and Holzer doesn't play this season after a year last year where we wondered if he was even still in existence. Now he's back in full force. So Josh Mahura maybe getting a little nod there to how well he has played as of late, and I thought that he looked especially good yesterday as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we had been clamoring for Holzer to be scratched because, I mean, you look at how bad everyone would look next to him. I mean, it was a common occurrence for someone to get paired with Corbin and Holzer, and their stats would just completely fall off a cliff. And so it was good to see that kind of our theory wasn't completely completely founded in
unwarranted.
Unwarranted, basically, that it kind of made sense. And so you had Michael Del Zotto, who has had a decent season. I think it's a fair way to put it. He hasn't been bad. He hasn't been great. And compared when he's paired with Josh Mahura, they had a pretty good night.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that it'll be interesting to see what Dallas Eakins does next game because although the Ducks did pull this one out and look good doing it in spurts, there were definitely moments, some low-light moments, where defensive play was not necessarily at the forefront. And the first goal of the game certainly comes to mind when we think of defensive lapses. 10 seconds into the contest, so not even time for people to get settled into their seats. Ryan Getzlaf gets the puck in the Duck zone and then just kind of tries to work it around, and then Josh Manson picks it up, and I don't really know what he was thinking here, to be quite honest. He just shoots it into the middle of the ice with absolutely no hope of hitting anyone, and of course there's Mika Zibanejad, who just picks up the puck, goes in all alone on John Gibson, and goes forehand, backhand, and just tucks that backhand, goes posting in, and that would put the Rangers up 1-0 just 10 seconds into the game. So
yeah, and there's probably two players on the Rangers team that you do not want to give the puck to in that situation. I mean, it's a bad play to get that puck to anyone, but especially to end up on the stick of Mika Zibanejad. The only person I could imagine that would probably be worse would be Artemi Panarin.
Well, funny you should mention that. Because just about 3 minutes later, Artemi Panarin would end up with the puck on his stick in the Ducks zone in the slot, and this would come off of a routine play, maybe the second game in a row now where we've seen John Gibson not necessarily directly turn it over with his puck handling, but not really do himself any favors. Gets the puck behind the net, just sends a soft backhand up the wall that doesn't really go to anyone, and it ends up back up on the stick of Artemi Panarin in the slot. Absolutely nobody there to cover him, and like you said, left alone Panarin, it's a worst-case scenario, and he fires it far side on John Gibson to make it 2-0 New York Rangers. So at that point, it's not feeling good if you're a Ducks fan. And also, what I found kind of interesting, on the first goal, Josh Manson was definitely at fault, and on the second goal, he was on the ice and wasn't particularly doing a whole lot to prevent that goal. And I think overall, the last two games have not been great performances from Josh Manson. I think he's definitely feeling a little bit of rust, not necessarily with the physical attributes, but just with the timing of the game. We've seen some uncharacteristically poor plays from him. You know, you think back to the Kings goal a couple games ago where he gets bodied off the puck and then it turns into a Kings just kind of offensive chance. Yeah, I think we're seeing I think that's the rust effect that we're seeing from Manson. You know, that first game adrenaline boost has worn off, and now I think he's fighting it just a little bit.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. I mean, I've mentioned this before that I think Josh Manson, when he's at his absolute best, is when he's not trying to play his super physical game that he's trying to, when he goes out of his way trying to make hits. It's when he's able to make the simple plays, and sometimes those simple plays take a bit of time to get your timing back. And I'm wondering if he's almost overcompensating with the physical side of his game as compared, because he has a little bit of rust and it's kind of drawing out the bad errors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's something to monitor. Long term, I'm probably not that worried, but it's just something to kind of keep track of. Now, the Ducks, after really looking like they were fighting it in those first few minutes, did well to claw back into this one. Yeah. I really don't. I think even overall that first period wasn't even that bad. Just on the whole, it's really just those first 3 minutes or first, I guess, 3.5 minutes that were a little concerning. But overall, the Ducks were fine, and they would bring it within one. They would go to the power play, and the Ducks power play not necessarily looking super threatening at times. They did have one opportunity where they were doing well to just kind of move the puck around in different directions. This one would go back to the point. Hampus Lindholm just one-times it on net, and Jakob Silfverberg would tip it home to make it a 2-1 hockey game. So it's interesting because the Ducks power play has scored, I think, in their last 3 games now, 3 to 4 games. And I don't necessarily think that the goals that they've scored have really been the result of these great system improvements. But they have had power plays in this stretch that have looked really good. Yeah. It just doesn't happen to be the ones where they've scored on. So I don't really know what to make of it.
I get what you're saying. I do think part of it is as long as you are kind of generating a lot of chances, something is going to find the back of the net. And so I think the power play as a whole has looked a little bit better of late. And you're right. The goals that have been scored haven't been the prettiest ones that they've set up. But I think they're as a result of the continual chances. And so
and on that particular wave, I mean, they definitely had, I think, more chances probably than they had the last 3 games combined. I mean, the puck was getting snapped around. And what I liked about that kind of attack is that they weren't necessarily overthinking it, where they're, where we've seen them so often just work it around the perimeter, almost just looking like they're playing keep away instead of actually trying to set up chances. On this opportunity, they were just entering the zone, maybe 2-3 passes at most, and getting a shot on net. And I think that although I don't know how sustainable that necessarily is because it's a little more volatile, I think that's what's working for them right now, that kind of quick attack. And we've seen other teams do this really well. I mean, Boston's power play is really good. And part of what makes it really good is that they tend to actually attack, to use a basketball analogy, they attack early in the shot clock. They don't spend a lot of time setting up. And so maybe this is going to be the sweet spot for the Ducks. Maybe they're just not a team that can really spend so much time setting up.
Here's an interesting thing that is coming from Zenith's 8 that I think is relevant, so I want to bring it up now. He had mentioned on the power play, is it better execution? Are they potentially buying into the 1-3-1 more than a standard box? Or
No,
standard type of power play setup with 2 at the point?
I don't really think that that's the case. I think that they've been doing the 1-3-1 all year long. That's not really anything new. It's just
whether the players have been buying into it more, I guess, is a better way to put it.
I mean, I don't know.
True.
It's hard to say, right? But I think that if nothing else, now they're just moving a little quicker. They're just making quicker decisions. And yeah, maybe that's because there's more confidence, more understanding of the system, of what kind of chances they're trying to get. Maybe that's what we consider a buy-in. I'm not totally sure. Whatever it is, to Zena's 8's point, it's working.
Yeah.
So we'll go with that.
The only thing I will say is I still do want more movement away from the puck on the power play. I think that's still something that's lacking. I think it's still a bit too stagnant.
Still a bit too stagnant. I will agree with you there. But yeah, so overall in that first period, after what looked like it could have been just a total disaster, the Ducks find a way to make it respectable and to just hold off that potentially high-powered Rangers offense. Hasn't been super high-powered this season, but they have the kind of players that can make you pay. Early in the second period, the Ducks would tie it right back up. Just a quick zone entry. They basically did the same thing to the Rangers that the Rangers had done to them early in the first period, scoring within the first minute. Just a really bad turnover by Artemi Panarin that Cam Fowler quickly transitions into offense. Ricard Raquel gets it over to Henrik, who then tries to center it. Henrik Lundqvist is just totally sliding out of his net here. The puck somehow finds its way back to the point, and Erik Gudbranson shoots it through a crowd, goes into what's an empty net at that point, and that would tie the game. And honestly, I know that the Rangers would take the lead back at in the third period, but I thought that this was really the beginning of the Ducks just controlling the rest of the game. Really, the Ducks, this is where they really started to dominate. If you just look at the shot amount and the overall play, this was a really good stretch for the Ducks here.
Yeah, definitely, and they really were controlling play. And I mean, I think one thing that we need to add as a caveat here is that essentially the Rangers are not very good, that they're not a good team.
They aren't. That's accurate. But look, this is a Ducks team right now that is looking for just about anything positive to build off of, because they've been dropping points left and right, losing against teams like the Kings where they probably feel like they should be winning. And so I don't think there's really any game right now that the Ducks play where you can pencil them in to pull out a victory. And maybe that's just my low esteem of them. I mean, you're not wrong. The Rangers have the worst shot attempt share at 5-on-5 of any team in the league, and by a significant amount. Yeah,
it's bad.
So the teams in 26th through 29th are in the 47% range, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the last. Those are the third to last, fourth to last, fifth to last teams. And then you've got the Rangers just 2 spots lower at 43%. So there's a massive gap there.
Yeah.
And just to give people context, the best team in the league is the Hurricanes in that regard at 54%, and the Rangers are 11% worse.
I think that we need to add that to the context of this game.
And that's fair. And that's totally fair.
I'm not trying to take away from this win because it's a good win for the Ducks. They were able to come back, and I think that a big part of the reason why this game was so close was the 2 turnovers early on that the Rangers were able to capitalize on. I think the Ducks played how they should have. This was a game where the Ducks were playing a team that they were clearly better than, and I don't think that that's really that big of a statement, honestly. And it was close in the first period because of the amount of high danger chances they allowed early on. But once the game settled in, the Ducks found their game. They were able to take advantage and really kind of take advantage and really get the chances, get the goals. And they probably should have found a way to win this game in regulation, but they found a way to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just throughout that second period, the Ducks would have a number of chances. Ricard Raquel had a really good-looking wrist shot go through a crowd that just barely caught the left arm of Henrik Lundqvist. I thought Max Comtois once again had a really good period, a good drive to the net, shaking off defenders. Ducks had another power play opportunity in that period that would actually come off of a Sam Steele, I guess, quasi breakaway.
Yeah.
He gets brought down.
It was weird they didn't call a penalty shot. I'm not usually one to be on
I don't understand the penalty shot rule anymore.
Yeah, because
I just don't. Because if that's not a penalty shot, then what is?
Maybe what they viewed was that the puck ended up on net, so they viewed it as him getting a shot, but I don't know.
I mean, it shouldn't matter.
No.
It really shouldn't matter. I mean, I think it actually is part of the rule.
It is part of the rule, and I
disagree with the rule. So
yeah. Well,
there you go.
If the puck ends up on net, so that maybe is why. Because
and I think
Lundqvist
the defender has to be fully behind the attacker.
I don't think
and he was kind of. Well, I'm just saying visually, it didn't maybe look as clean of a breakaway, and maybe that's why they didn't call the penalty shot. I don't know. I mean, it was an odd non-call in terms of the penalty shot, but the Ducks did get a power play off of it, which came up empty, and that was definitely not a good-looking power play after the one that they scored on in the first period. So at that point, after 2 periods, the Ducks were out shooting the Rangers 27-14. So they really ramped it up against, like we said, one of the league's worst teams. Mm-hmm. Now, to start the third period, a little bit of a trend here, starting with John Gibson, and not one that we really like to see here. I mean, I don't know if you want to call this a bad goal. I will call it a not great goal. It's Mika Zibanejad just kind of flying down the wing, and I thought that overall, Cam Fowler played this pretty well. I mean, he kind of forces him to his backhand, forces him. He does get back to his forehand, but it's in an uncomfortable position, and Zibanejad just kind of wedges it on net. I mean, it's not really a whole lot of a shot, but for whatever reason, John Gibson attempts a poke check, a flying poke check, as opposed to just kind of holding his stance and making what would have been an easy save. And this one with beat Gibson just kind of trickles through his arm and finds its way to the back of the net. So this probably isn't as bad of a goal as what John Gibson let in against Winnipeg. Yeah, but it's still just another, especially
it's a weird. Well, and the thing is, it's so obvious that the wrong play was made because the puck goes in the back of the net, and you're going for something. If you're gonna go for the poke check, you gotta make it. You can't let it. The distance wasn't there either. Yeah. I mean, I think what Gibson may have been thinking is that, okay, he's going to try to cut from his backhand to his forehand and go across the crease, which you often see guys do in that situation. And if that had been the case, the poke check makes total sense. I would still argue that you should go with the half poke and not the full poke, but that's just overthinking at that point. If he had just held his ground, again, easy save. So not great, but maybe there's a reason to think that he wasn't totally in the wrong. I don't know. And then in the rest of the period, again, the Ducks just really, really dominating. Max Comtois had a huge hit on Pavel Buchnevich early in that third period. And I've been saying it every game now, every pod, Max Comtois. This is the Max Comtois we saw in the preseason. Yeah. Really physical, making plays, not necessarily flashy, not necessarily getting points every night, but he's just a guy who's noticeable out there and in a positive way. And I think that, overall, we should just talk about the kid line as a whole because they were really good. I mean, you look at the stats on the night, 0.57 expected goals for, 0.13 expected goals against, and that also flies at the eye test of tonight's game, or yesterday's game. That line was just all over the place. I think Terry was the one who was mainly bringing the puck in, and then I thought Steele had his best game in a long time. I thought he was all over the place. I think he was in on the forecheck. I think he was in on the forecheck in a way we have not seen in a while. Because that was one of the things that it didn't seem like he was doing with Raquel and Silverberg, and it seemed like he was constantly on a guy's hip, constantly trying to get the play or trying to get the puck.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching Terry and Comtois together, I mean, they had one nice kind of 2-on-1 break where Comtois got a really nice chance off of it. So overall, I mean, they were just really good together.
And they had a couple different really good breaks. They had a couple different 3-on-2, 2-on-1, different things like that. And the passes were just a half second off. And I feel like there was just some timing issues that will come. And it's one of those things that is a very good sign. And I'm really excited if that line can stay together because, I mean, this is just a personal opinion, personal bias. I like seeing all the kids together because it kind of gives you this fun combination to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. And they've been playing together for a long time. I mean, Terry, Comtois, and Steele have been on rookie camp lines together for like 2 or 3 years now. I mean, these guys actually have a lot of chemistry. And when they're playing against teams like the Rangers, who are maybe not as prickly defensively, they're going to be able to actually flash some of that skill. So I wouldn't really expect this every game from that line, but the fact that they have this kind of in their arsenal, that at least you can see some flashes of it, hey, that's a positive that the Ducks will take any day of the week. So we're going to jump into our first break here, but on the other side of that break, we've got some exciting end-of-game stuff to cover. So we'll be right back. Okay, back from our first break. So 5 minutes left in the third period. The Ducks still searching for that equalizer. And, man, this one was getting stressful for the Ducks because, like we've been talking about here, this is a game that they were dominating. This is a game that they rightfully should have felt like they could be leading in, and instead they found themselves trailing. And it felt like another one of those games that we've seen this team so often play recently where you feel like they deserve a better fate or they at least deserve a point out of it. And it just didn't feel like it was trending that way. Now, late in the period, Troy Terry draws a trip, good-looking rush up ice. It was also a nice breakout pass by Josh Mahura. And then on, I believe it was a power play goal with 1:46 left in the third period. Hampus Lindholm, of all people,
on a power play.
Just comes, and I'll use a little New York analogy here, comes skating down Broadway, totally unopposed, skating into the Rangers zone, just winds up a clapper, and it gets through everybody and beats fellow countryman Henrik Lundqvist, tying the game up. Everybody's excited. And I think what made this goal just fun to watch is that it was totally unexpected. I mean, there was no build-up to it. It wasn't like a set play. It was just, I'm going to come in here, get a shot off, and hey, somehow it found it found its way into the back of the net, beating a Hall of Fame goaltender. So that's a pretty feel-good moment if you're the Ducks.
Well, and especially being a Swedish goalie. That also probably had to add something to it for Lindholm, that Lundqvist has probably been in the league long enough where Lindholm probably watched him as a teenager in the league.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a guy that was constantly probably all over billboards in Sweden.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, going into overtime, the Ducks did not play well in overtime.
No.
I actually think this was their worst 3-on-3 performance in a long time.
Did either team really play that well in overtime?
Well, John Gibson had to make a couple of huge saves.
Yeah, fair.
I mean, he had a huge save on Adam Fox where there was a defensive breakdown, and then he had another just enormous save on Mika Zibanejad, who just deked through everyone on the Ducks team. And again, John Gibson had to come up with an incredible save. It was because Zibanejad was everywhere in this game. I mean, I don't know what the Rangers' plan is for him and their kind of long-term rebuild.
He has to be a cornerstone for him.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I mean, he's 26, so he's not necessarily one of these kind of 23 and under guys, but he is fun to watch.
They also just paid Artemi Panarin a bunch of money, and isn't Panarin like 28?
Yeah. So I don't know what the timeline is for them, but he should be a part of it because he just embarrassed the Ducks on that play. And he almost had a hat trick in this game.
Ooh.
Now,
wait, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you could revisit, the reason why I bring this up is because of Mika Zibanejad, obviously. If you could revisit the Bobby Ryan trade, and there were there were rumors out there that instead of Stefan Nason, I believe, that Mika Zibanejad might have been included in that deal if the Ducks would have included more.
That would have been a home run by the Ducks. Imagine Silverberg and Zibanejad.
Yeah, or maybe, or maybe it wasn't the first round pick, or maybe whatever. So essentially,
I mean,
instead
would
of
you rather
Richie,
now this gets into would you rather Mika Zibanejad or Nick Ritchie?
Mika Zibanejad.
I mean, all due respect to Nick Ritchie, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think that one's particularly close. But to the shootout we go, thanks to John Gibson's heroics. Zibanejad would just have a filthy move, going backhand to forehand, just totally buckled John Gibson. I'm not really going to blame John Gibson there because Zibanejad's a great shootout guy. Gibson, though, would redeem himself with a 2-pad stack save. And then Andre Kasha needing to extend the shootout. Hey, we talked about it recently.
Yeah.
Does he ever do anything else? Who needs to do anything else when it always works?
When it works, yeah.
And it works against guys like Henrik Lundqvist. He goes faking the shot on his forehand and then just tucks in the backhand. It goes off the post and in. And then Jakob Silfverberg with an opportunity to win the game for Anaheim. A guy that we haven't really seen in the shootout in a long time. Maybe because, according to some people, he's not good at it. Well, he looked pretty damn good on this play. Comes in, does what he usually does, snakes in on that left side, off wing, thinking he's going to go far side with the wrist shot. Instead, kind of sells that shot and then goes to his backhand and just completely fooled Henrik Lundqvist. I mean,
yeah,
Lundqvist totally thought he was going for the shot. Instead, tucks in the backhand, wins it for Anaheim.
And so
there you go.
Speaking of Andre Kasha and the fact that he always utilizes that one move and then will not use something else. So I can't remember Jakob Silfverberg utilizing a different move.
Or, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Or if he did, or if he had, it wasn't successful. And I'm pretty sure when he had, it wasn't in the same like trajectory and path. It was a completely different looking attempt. Whereas this was a beautiful shot because of the amount of misinformation that he was sending on that play. The fact that he curls in the same exact way, the fact that he loads up for the shot at the same exact time. This is the same move that he's used for years and continually beaten goalie by just placing it perfectly. By coming down the left-hand side as the right-hand shot. And he loads up and looks as if he's going to take it. And that is just Henrik Lundqvist basically reading the scouting report and knowing what he's probably going to do. And it's one of those things that he actually pivoted and did something different. And it really, really worked. And he took the puck from his forehand for the shot and moved it to his backhand and went top shelf. And I mean, that's one of those moves that is potentially going to change the way goalies. Now, granted, there may not be that many shootouts moving forward, but change the way goalies play him in the shootout and may open up that shot more. And now he has that in his repertoire, seeing as it has worked. And so the fact that you're able to do two very distinctly different moves with the same exact approach makes it really difficult for goalies.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what makes, like, for example, TJ Oshie so great in the shootout is that he always has the same exact approach, but there's about 4 different moves that he can do off of that one approach. And when goalies start figuring out your move, you need to introduce some counters, some variants, just so that they can at least respect your kind of preferred option, right? So if there's at least some belief by the goalie that you're going to go to your backhand with all the scouting that goes into shootouts, well then, hey, maybe that there's just going to be an inch more of space on the far side for the shot. It sounds like maybe we're reading into this too much, but the amount of scouting that goes into shootouts, the amount of video that people watch in the NHL, it really does matter, all these little details.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, and the thing is, and this is kind of the way I tried to put it in the last thing, is it's all about the misinformation that you're sending out. You're trying to essentially fool. You're trying to mess with the goaltender's head to make him think that you're going to do a very specific shot. So the more similarities you can have between your moves when they're distinctly different, the better, because of the misinformation you're sending out.
Yep. So Ducks win this one 4-3. And again, a feel-good win, a game that if you just, like you said, if you really think that this team is the type of team where you should expect them to win this game, I mean, you could argue that you should expect almost any team to beat the Rangers these days.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, this is a game where I think the 2 points were there to be had. They went and got them. They didn't let maybe some of the bad habits really stick around after the first 3 minutes of the game where they looked really scrambly. I mean, that's just what this team needs right now is a game, a performance to hang its hat on, something to galvanize the group, and hopefully carry that over into what's going to be a pretty tough schedule here. The Ducks have two back-to-backs, two sets of back-to-backs next week. And
all on the East Coast, have to fly out to the East Coast.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, they're not playing a bunch of great teams. They're doing the New York circuit, so they're playing the Devils, who are not good right now and who are actively holding out their best player to trade him.
Yeah.
Then they're playing the Islanders and the Rangers. But that's just a tough schedule. I mean, they're playing 4 games in the span of 6 days. So that's just rough on any team, and we'll see how they handle that. So getting points in the bank like that at home against a bad team, that's just what you need to stay alive in the playoff race. Now, I don't know if we're still really monitoring that. If you're following the Ducks, I mean, at this point, they're 7 points out of the final wildcard spot, and there's 4 teams ahead of them before that final spot.
Which is the key.
I mean, if we're still monitoring that, then those are the kind of games that they need to win.
Yep. I mean, you don't want to really say this early, but if the Ducks are going to have any hopes of making the playoffs, this road trip is kind of important. If they go 0-4 going into the holiday, the short little holiday break, that's going to be some tough sledding moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll go 0-4 on this trip, personally.
I don't either.
I think that what's going to be interesting is that they're going to have to play Ryan Miller twice. I mean, I don't anticipate the Ducks playing John Gibson in either of the back-to-backs in both games. So Ryan Miller has been slightly shaky as of late, and so depending on what kind of Ryan Miller shows up, depending what kind of John Gibson shows up, that could also decide it. Because against the Devils and the Rangers, I would expect the Ducks to win. I think the Islanders game is maybe a bit of a toss-up. And then the Flyers, I think they're definitely underdogs in that game. So they have in my head, if they can come out of this road trip breaking even 2 out of 4, I think that's a success.
Yeah.
And if they can go anything beyond that, then it's just a home run.
Yeah. Real quick, I do want to backtrack to the Rangers game, though. One thing I thought that was interesting that of note from this game was the style of play the Ducks were going with. And part of it, I think, is obviously going to be due to the fact that the Rangers just defensively are not a great defensive team. They bleed shots against, and so that's kind of going to play it out. But it felt like the Ducks were really more playing a transition style game against the Rangers than they had in the last little bit, what we saw almost earlier on in the season. Now, we could argue about whether that was happening because the Ducks were making a concerted effort at it, whether it was happening because there were turnovers in the neutral zone allowing the Ducks to play like that. But it really felt like there was this effort to get in on transition chances and really try to push the play in that way. And I thought that was important because when we've seen the Ducks at their best this season, it's been doing that. It hasn't been a slow prodding game. It hasn't been slow zone entries, having concerted zone time or a lot of zone time. Because honestly, when the Ducks have had a lot of zone time, they haven't ever really been able to find a soft spot in the zone and being able to exploit that zone time and get chances. Really, the best chances they've gotten are when they've had some rush chances. And that's pretty standard in the league. And so it's good to see that, at least in this game, that was what appeared to be happening.
Yeah. Now, one thing I did want to point out, and I think that this is something that we've definitely talked, I think, a fair amount about, but really came to a head. Erik Gudbranson scoring this game just prompted me to point out that this season, him and Cam Fowler have been legitimately great together.
Yeah.
I mean, they're controlling shot attempts at a 54% clip, and the expected goals battle, they're dominating that as well at 55%. And so it's not something that I think anyone expected.
Nope.
But it's really the best possible outcome you can imagine for the Ducks. Because not only are they getting those numbers, which regardless of what they were being asked to do would be great, but they've had to play some pretty big minutes. They've had to play some tough assignments when you consider that the injuries that the Ducks have had with Manson out, with Lindholm missing stretches. Now, they are not necessarily getting tough zone starts. I mean, they're at 49%, and I don't know how much to necessarily read into that. But regardless, again, they've just been great together. And if Manson and Lindholm can find their game, which they haven't really since that first game, I think they've been pretty shaky since their first game. If those two can get back to what they've been in the past, or even a shadow of that, the Ducks have a legit top four.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so
with Erik Gudbranson.
Yeah. So, like you said, so that pairing, just so everyone knows, from a Corsi for percentage, out of all the pairings with over essentially any decent sample size, they have the highest Corsi for percentage on the Ducks this season. They have, let me just try to see. I think they have the highest expected goals for percentage also out of any line with D pair. I guess Michael Del Zotto, Jacob Larson may be the only one with 56 minutes that has a better expected goals for percentage. So it's kind of shocking that they've been that good. But I mean, the thing is, we've said this a couple times. You got to call them like you see them. That pairing's been good. Erik Gudbranson has been good with Cam Fowler. I'm not quite sure if it's a Cam Fowler thing, if it's an Erik Gudbranson's play getting better. It could be a couple different things, but that pairing has been legitimately good and give the Ducks a lot of options, and it really kind of settles the team down a bit. I mean, we talked about this a fair amount with Josh Manson, and even if the Manson-Lindholm pairing isn't great, the benefit of having Manson back is the fact that it kind of settles everything down. It puts everyone kind of into a better spot and a better place. And that's kind of what we're seeing. Erik Gudbranson is not being asked to do more than he should. And that's kind of the benefit of having Josh Manson back. And now, granted, some of these numbers have come with Manson being out, but I think with Manson back, it kind of settles everything down even more and kind of puts everyone into their rightful place in this defense group. And you actually have, with the fact that you have Lindholm, Manson, Gudbranson, Fowler, and if they do Michael Del Zotto and don't bring Corbin and Holzer back in the lineup and have Josh Mahura there also, they have a legitimately decent to good tops, or decent to good six defensemen.
And that's the thing, is that that you kind of touched on, is that how much of this is Cam Fowler and how much of this is Erik Gudbranson. I mean, you know, why not both, I guess, is my response to that. But I do think that, look, we've seen Cam Fowler really struggle in the past at 5-on-5, but Fowler has been great this season.
Yeah.
If you look at his numbers, with Gudbranson in particular, they're amazing. And he was also very good with Brendan Gooley to start the season. He's kind of the common thread in those pairings. And whether it's how Dallas Eakins is utilizing him, whatever it is, he's performing. I mean, last season, this is a little bit unrelated because he played less games, but last season, Cam Fowler played in 59 games and had 23 points. This season, he's played in 33 games and already has 16 points. I mean, he's been very good. Yeah. He's been productive. Now, I don't want to throw the Norris bone out there.
Yeah, the issue with
I think well, he hasn't scored enough points, and I don't think he's actually a serious contender. But I would give him like maybe a fifth or sixth. I mean, you know, like one of those pat on the back votes. But he has been everything I think that the Ducks would hope for him to be. And what's kind of crazy about Cam Fowler is that, you know, he's been around for a long time. He's been on the Ducks since he was 18, but he's still only 28. And, you know, for some that might feel like, oh, he's on the back end already. But some guys have just different career trajectories. Some guys figure it out later. And I think Cam Fowler had a really weird track, if you think about it. I mean, going straight from junior, playing in really weird roles.
Having Randy Carlyle as his coach.
Yeah. I mean,
times.
He's just been all over the map. And I think because of the way he plays, where he's such a great skater and he's so good at that I think that just has led to coaches asking weird stuff of him. I mean, either ask him to be a puck carrier, ask him to give it up sooner. It's just coaches maybe just haven't known how to use that. I don't know. I don't really know what the answer is there. But whatever it is right now, it's working.
Yeah, it 100% is. And I mean, he's on pace to have one of his most productive seasons. I mean, he's always been in the 30-point range, right around there. He put up 40 points. 40 points in his very first season. And so he's on pace with 16 and 33 to really kind of surpass that and get up right around that, or not surpass it, but be in that same range and kind of be where the Ducks hope he would be. He's not going to ever be the shutdown defenseman, but if he can be an offensively productive defenseman for this team that is not getting hemmed in his own zone, that's really good for this Ducks team.
And I am willing to give Cam Fowler more credit for the success of this line or this pairing.
Agreed.
Just because Erik Gudbranson has not really ever been good at 5-on-5 until really the end of last season and this year. Yeah. So what's different in all those things? And I mean, he could legitimately have improved area of his games. I'm totally willing to buy that. And he has. I think what's really standing out to me with Gudbranson is just that there's not really. I mean, outside of maybe him being kind of slow off the rush, there aren't too many obvious weaknesses in his game. I actually think he's a better puck mover than I thought.
He's a better skater than I thought.
Yeah. He's still not a top flight guy.
No,
but he gets the job done out there.
The only thing that I see that's really a bad part of his game, quote unquote, is that he has a bit of an over-reliance upon the boards to break out of the zone to find forwards, and that can sometimes lead to extended zone time against. And then sometimes his positioning when he's defending rushes against cannot be the greatest. And we've seen that a couple times with him getting on the wrong side of guys. But for the most part, he's been good. I don't think there's any other way to put it. He's been good, and we got to give him credit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to go into our final break here. And on the other side of that, we are going to get into some final thoughts and some listener questions. So we'll be right back. All right, back from our second break. So any final thoughts you have on that game, the state of this team, anything that jumps out at you in particular?
Not necessarily. I think that this was a game the Ducks needed to win. I think we talked about the fact that they played more of a rush style of game. We've talked about Cam Fowler. We've kind of gone through all the big and necessary points from this game. Shootouts are fun.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That makes me happy that you say that.
You and I have agreed on this the entire time we've done a show together.
Oh, couple things. Artemi Panarin already has 19 goals, which is kind of insane. And then another thing, which was kind of funny, and I don't think that this helps the case for Rangers fans being really diehard fans. Rangers fans throwing hats on the ice when Zibanejad scored a shootout goal. Hey, that doesn't count as a hat trick, folks.
Nope.
I mean, I kind of, from a fan perspective, I kind of get it. You know, you just want to. Doesn't count. But it's not a hat trick.
Yeah.
You just wasted your hat. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just it's not really like Wyshynski used to have the jersey foul. It's not really like a fan foul, but it's close.
It's a fan foul because it's not a goal.
I know
it is not an actual goal.
You're just kind of, but as a fan, you're kind of recognizing what he's done in that.
It's a fan not understanding that it's not a goal.
Okay. I mean, hey, fair enough. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you there.
Panarin having 19 goals already is insane. The goal scoring race in the NHL is kind of nuts, to be honest.
I mean, offense is out of control this season.
Yeah.
And, I think teams are just the way the game is being played overall. Although this Rangers team definitely sucks, I do think that they play a more modern style. If you just kind of watch how they break it out, how they enter the zone, they play the way that I think teams are going to start playing, that teams are starting to play more and more around the league. They don't really have the horses to pull it off, but they have a lot of skill on that roster. And it's great to see just all the goals being scored, all the offense. I don't go to hockey games to see a 1-0 score line. Yeah. I just don't.
And then
now that being said, I don't need it to be 7-6, 10-9, but give me something to get out of my seat about.
Yeah. So just so you know, there are currently 6 players in the league with over 20 goals.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And we're not even halfway through the year.
Yeah, that is the ridiculous part. I mean, Ovechkin his shooting percentage is kind of down, and he's still on pace to crack 50.
Yeah.
I mean,
here's a fun question. How many 50-goal scorers are we going to have this year?
Ooh, that's a fun one. I think we're going to get Okay. I'm going to go with 5.
Damn.
I'm going to go Pasternak, of course.
Are any of them not, from the group that's not the 20 goal scorers right now?
Oh, maybe that's the better
question.
question.
The 20 goal scorers right now are Pasternak, Eichel, Ovechkin, McDavid, Draisaitl, McKinnon.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the guys. Those are my 5.
Well, that's 6, and you picked 5.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, outside of that, my kind of issue is that it's hard to pick anyone that's lower down in the heat because they're all shooting massive percentages. I mean, Artemi Panarin is shooting 20%. Brad Marchand is shooting 20%. John Gabriel Pageau is scoring 20.8% of his shots.
Is that going to be a guy that gets way overpaid, gets traded on a rental, and the play
lock it in.
Buyer's remorse hard?
I mean, maybe if this is indeed the new norm in the NHL, maybe Austin Matthews, like if high shooting percentage is the new norm, maybe Austin Matthews with his lowly 15% and 19 goals is going to find a way to get to 50.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the fact that Nathan McKinnon has 20 goals on only 13% is kind of remarkable if you look at the percentages of the guys above him. I mean, Pasternak is at 20, Jack Eichel's almost at 19, McDavid and Draisaitl are both above 18. With McDavid and Draisaitl, though, I kind of expect them to be that high because they're just ridiculously good. Anyway, now we're going on a bit of a tangent.
This is a Patreon episode now at this point.
Yeah. One thing I did want to talk about, Josh Mahura is good.
Yes.
Just no more debate. Josh Mahura is good.
Yep.
He does good things a lot. I mean, it's kind of remarkable the transformation he's had from a guy who you could see little spurts maybe of what he could become to now he just looks poised out there. I mean, he had one play, if it wasn't last night or yesterday or 2 games ago, he had one nice play where he's just it was yesterday. Circles around, gets the puck on his stick, and has a guy pressuring him, and then just skates it all the way from basically low in his own zone to out past the blue line, and then just shovels it on one hand to break it out to Troy Terry, who then carries it up the rest of the way. I mean, his confidence in not only his own skating stride, but his passing ability. He also had one goal-saving play in the first period where there was a loose puck in the crease, and he managed to get to the puck, but you could see in his head, he almost covered it with his hand or tried using his hand, but instead just got down on one knee, shielded it from the oncoming New York Ranger attacker, and then kicked it out with his skate. I mean, the level of awareness in that kind of split-second moment was impressive. So Josh Mahura is good.
Yeah.
He shouldn't go back down unless he starts, even if he struggles. I mean,
yeah.
I'd rather see a struggling Josh Mahura than
Corbin and Holzer. Yep.
So
all
lock
right.
it in.
Time for our second break, I'm assuming?
No, we already took it.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Oof.
Wow.
Oof.
Oof.
Okay. We should do questions.
It's early. Let's go with that.
It's 11:30.
It's early.
It's early by our standards.
It's very early by our standards.
Okay.
I'm going to get called out probably hard on that. Whatever, it happens. Time for some questions. So, for those of you watching the recorded version of this on YouTube, you can find us at YouTube TV, not you. You can find us on YouTube by searching for the AC Pod, and you can like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to comment there, we will read through the comments, and it's a really good time on there, and you can basically see the exact version of what we're doing right now. We also obviously have the recorded version of this. You can find it at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anything like that. But the real fun thing is our Twitch chat, where you can interact with us live. You can help support the show live. If you have Amazon Prime, you have Twitch Prime. You get one free Twitch Prime each and every 30 days. You do have to hit that subscribe button after 30 days. And we will prioritize, if you are a Twitch Prime member, your questions in the chat. If it is a busier day, you get special emotes next to your emotes to use, special badges next to your name. So I did want to give a shout out. We have 3 new subs from this stream. Verluna has subscribed for a year now, and Adam, what a great year has been. Thank you so much. Zen is 8 subscribed for 4 months in a row. Lewis X209 subscribed for 15 months. 15 months
Wow.
from Lewis.
Goat. We need to hang your jersey. Pick a jersey number. We'll hang it up.
Find a 209 jersey
in the rafters. Maybe we'll have it in the Maybe that's something we should do. Is in the top of our screen on the stream, we'll have little jersey numbers hung up at the top.
You just like adding work for me, don't you?
Hey, I'll do it. Tell me how to do it. I'll do it.
Look it up. All for you. And by the way, Bonnie said edit. Nope, there will be no edit of this. So all of what we're doing right now is going up. So we had a question from It's a Clue. We are starting to see what kind of players the kids are. What do you feel like each young player in the Ducks lineup could work on the most to take the next step?
So which young player you're saying?
What do you feel like? What do you feel like each young player in the Ducks lineup could work on the most to take the next step?
Well, yeah. So this is a good question. I think that with Troy Terry, one thing that I've repeatedly harped on this season is that he needs to shoot the puck more, and he's actually been doing that. Against the Rangers yesterday, he had 7 shot attempts. That's 2 games in a row now where he's cracking 5+ shot attempts. That's definitely what I think he needs to just keep doing, because I think he has all the tools. I think he's strong enough. He's quick enough. I mean, the tendency to make a move, I don't hate that, just because I think if he's confident enough to try it, that tells me that he can eventually pull it off. But the fact of the matter is that the NHL, look, I've never played in the NHL, so I'm not talking from experience here, but from watching the NHL from a long time, there's time and space is extremely limited. And so you have to be able to make quicker decisions, and a lot of that means just getting more shots off. So for him, shoot the puck more. Sam Steele's a bit more complicated because there's not like an obvious thing that he needs to work on. I think that for him, a lot of it is just
consistency.
Consistency, but 2 things. I think he's got to be more aggressive offensively. I think that his tendency is to defer a lot, and that doesn't mean necessarily shooting, but it means just looking for his teammates in the slot, instead of maybe trying to just get it deep, just different things like that. And so that's offensively. And defensively, I think is where he really needs to improve. I think his awareness defensively is not good right now. I think the numbers show that, and you've seen that with some breakdowns. And then like for a Max Comtois, just to kind of round out that kid line, I think like you just talked about with Sam Steele, just consistency, because we've seen the best and worst of Comtois this season. I mean, the first games where he played this season, he was totally invisible. And then the last few games, he's been extremely noticeable in a positive way. So that would be my little synopsis there.
Yeah. And Time chimes in, our good buddy Time, said, why aren't the kids developing, and when do we give up on them?
I think they are developing.
I think they are developing also.
Literally what we're watching every game is their development. Now, why aren't they a finished product? Well, here's why. Troy Terry was a 5th-round pick. Sam Steele was a late-round, 30th overall first-rounder. Max Comtois was a 50th.
He was a second-round pick.
Second round. Like, none of these guys, I know, and this is the problem when you're a fan of a team, is that you hype up every guy in your system to death because, hey, like, more power to you. That's what fans do. But the reality is, the further out you are from that kind of top 3, top 5 in the draft, either the longer it's going to take or the less likely it's going to happen that you become a regular.
And we've kind of said this, that these guys aren't going to be top line players. That's just not what they project to be.
It's not likely.
Yeah. They're more likely to be second liners, third liners in that mold. And so I think we're starting to see the development of these guys into those roles. There are things, I think Terry, one of the biggest issues, I think he's shooting more, which is good. But I think the issue that he's having is the timing of those shots. A lot of the shots, like against I believe it was the Kings game. A lot of the shots came into guys' legs, and they're not getting through. And so he had 7 shot attempts, but no shots on goal. And so even though, yes, I'm a big Terry fan, and yes, I do think he needs to shoot the puck more, and that obviously seems like in that game something he was told, but there is something to being able to get the shot off in the right spot, getting it off where it's going to get on net. And
well, hey, look, but that's the thing.
That's part of the next part of the development, part of the next stage. Identifying that he needs to be taking shots is the first part of it, and not holding on to it too long. The next part of it is understanding when that shot needs to be taken. And
exactly,
it's a curve.
That's the thing. It's a gradual process.
Yeah.
It's one step at a time. Just getting a guy to start shooting more is one step, and then, like you said, the next step is shot selection, right? So yeah, I mean, and so for people who are frustrated, I get it. When you're a fan of a team, you want every prospect to just totally pan out right away. But it's just not the reality when a guy is not a top flight guy.
And we've seen it with Nick Ritchie, even, who was a number 10 overall pick, but is probably, if you were to do a redraft, probably wouldn't be that high.
No. Would he be a first rounder?
I think he'd be a first rounder because you look at the other guys taken right behind him. There's nobody. Yeah. At least he's an NHL.
But on true talent, is Nick Ritchie a first round pick? I mean, I guess maybe in the 20s.
If you look at, like I said, if you look at everyone else taken around him, or not before him, but after him, there's not exactly anyone that stands out besides David Pastrnak, who might be redrafted at number 1 overall.
Right. Yeah. So I think that Nick Ritchie's a good example of this, where Nick Ritchie's 23, and I think it took all of the 3 years or 4 years, whatever, that he's been on the Ducks to get to this point where he's a consistent contributor, right? It took that long. There were stretches where he was not close to this. And I think that it's probably going to be a similar timeline for these guys. They definitely have more offensive upside, but I think it's going to be, particularly for Sam Steele, it's going to be a long road.
Yeah.
Because he has the toughest position to learn.
Yeah. And real quick, the reason why I brought up Nick Ritchie, actually, there was a reason for it, was the fact that you've seen his development, the fact that everyone was so high on him, and it actually eventually caused people to be so down on him because he wasn't living up to the expectations that people had with him as being a number 10 overall pick. But you've seen his development to become the point where he's at, and how he's become a relevant player for this team and become, like I said, one of the top players for this Ducks team.
Yeah, as I so often say, Nick Ritchie is deserving of your love and respect. Now, as far as the Ducks' current class of young players, I do think that, people have been frustrated saying, well, what does this say about Dallas Eakins' job down in San Diego? Because, hey, he's the one who's been developing some of these guys. But I think we have to understand that a coach can only do so much, right? Unless the guys that come up just look completely out of their depth, completely unprepared, I think the coach has done his job, right? The fact that they're not hitting their ceiling right away, that they don't look like instant contributors, maybe there's some blame to be had for the Ducks farm system, but I don't think you can just totally say, oh, well, it's because they weren't developed properly. Look at Josh Mahura. Yeah. Josh Mahura has kind of come out of nowhere, and you can draw a pretty straight line from last year to this year. And, hey, who was coaching him last year? It was Dallas Eakins.
Sorry, it's hard for me not to want to make this connection just because it's there. Is there any similarity between Josh Mahura and Shea Theodore?
Tough to say. Really tough to say. Yeah,
but
because Josh Mahura is a little smaller. Because Shea Theodore is a little more imposing physically.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Have you seen Josh Mahura?
Have you seen Shea Theodore?
Yeah, he's a strong guy. He's a big guy.
I'm about to look up how tall and how heavy he is because I don't buy that.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Mahura is charitably listed at 6 foot 190, and then Shea Theodore in comparison. Let's see here if I can get his size. This is really
6'2", 195.
Yeah. He's 2 inches taller, and he's heavier.
The reason why I'm making, he's also older though. I guarantee
but you just got proven objectively incorrect.
When he was with the Ducks, I don't know if he was 195. But regardless, the reason why I'm making that comparison is that they're both left-hand shot defensemen, known as being kind of offensive type of guys that are doing a pretty good. I mean, Shea Theodore, when he came up, did a pretty good job of driving play, and it seems like Josh Mahura is fitting into that same mold.
Yes. So if we're making that comparison in terms of just what they've done, I thought you were more going for more like a scouting report type. If we just look at
kind of filling the role that Shea Theodore kind of left, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking at it, if you look at, for example, Shea Theodore's kind of last full season in the AHL, so that would have been 2015-16, he had 37 points in 50 games. You could argue he already should have been in the NHL at that point. Shea Theodore was a first-round pick, 26th overall, whereas Josh Mahura is a third-round pick, 85th overall. So I think if you look at, for example, Josh Mahura's last season, in San Diego, he had 19 points in 40 games, which is still respectable. But
Yeah,
I
nowhere
think
near
Shea
that
Theodore
level.
was already a lot better early on than Mahura. But I see where you're going with that. I think that Mahura is he really is the last guy from San Diego as a blue liner coming up, showing any kind of hope that he could be a legit NHL defenseman. So yeah, I agree with you there. Because after that, I mean, you're hoping Simon Benoit just becomes anything. At this point, I don't know what you're hoping from Jacob Larson. So yeah, pickings are pretty slim now in San Diego.
Yeah. Let's hit this question, then get on out of here. But It's a Clue asks, as we mentioned Tank Talk last time, what would Alexis Lafreniere do for the Ducks?
Give them a legit top flight prospect, blue chip.
Hey, don't you slight Trevor Zegras like that?
Well, Lafreniere is just on a totally different level.
Fair.
Yeah. I mean, Lafreniere was in the QMJHL at age 15 and was good at age 15, playing against guys who were up to 20 years old. So having a top flight guy like that would just totally rearrange the pecking order in this Duck system, because, so much of the Ducks' future right now is really hinging on the guys that we've been talking about seemingly all podcast, right? So if you get in a Lafreniere, then all of a sudden, hey, whether those guys take 2 years, 3 years to hit their potential, that's fine, because Lafreniere is going to come in, and if it's not as a rookie, it's going to be within the first 2 years. He's going to be a legit NHL player right away. And it even takes heat off of Trevor Zegras, right? Who right now, he kind of is carrying that torch for the Ducks. So, I mean, needless to say, but having a top pick for the Ducks would do a lot.
Just as a Trevor Zegras update, he currently has 17 points in 16 games in college hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Having a pretty good year. I think that's second in the league in freshman scoring. I'm trying to figure out where Turcotte went to, because I believe that he was above him. But it looks like the only player above him is Cole Caulfield.
Yes, sir.
With 20 points.
Sing it to me.
There you go.
Now, did we get to this question from Bonnie about the Ducks' four lines?
No, I don't think we did.
Okay, so
let's hit that.
This question from Literate Gal: if the Ducks are rolling four lines, so not ranking them, are they also doing that with the defense, or are those lines ranked? So I think the gist of that question is basically, are the Ducks rolling their blue line like they're rolling their forwards?
No, they are not.
I think they are a little bit more than we've seen in the past. But yeah, overall, it's still interesting because the Fowler and Lindholm are getting all the minutes because they get power play time, and then there's a pretty big drop off after that.
Well, I think also if you look at the way that at least the third pairing had been used in terms of minutes, there is a clear difference between the third pair and then the top two pairs in terms of minutes that they are getting at 5-on-5. So I would not say it's rolling because it's a pretty decent sized gap. But I mean, that makes sense because we've talked about this in terms of matchups. Defense is where you actually really want to get those matchups in. And so if you're relying upon Lindholm and Manson to be that matchup type defense pairing, then they're going to be out on the ice a bit more. But actually, having said that, I just kind of wanted to pull up the minutes for the last game, and it's actually at 5-on-5, pretty evenly spread out, to be honest. Manson at 18 minutes, Fowler at 17 minutes, Lindholm 17, Delzato 15, Gudbranson 15, Mahura 13:57.
Yeah, and I don't even really think the Ducks are rolling four lines right now. I mean, maybe it's just because last game they're trailing, but Rowney, Shore, and Grant, Rowney, Grant, and Delorier, they all played less than 10 minutes at 5-on-5. So they're not really getting a ton of time out there. And again, this is probably a bit of a product of this team having to get a goal late, and so they're really shortening the bench up. But I mean, that's not rolling four lines if you're only playing six guys when you need to score, And so I don't think that's bad at all. I mean, this whole notion of rolling four lines, I think, is getting really overrated, because if you have a fourth line that's not good, then playing them just as much as your top guys or even close is probably not a good call.
Well,
I think it's more of an energy conservation kind of long-term thing, but I don't think it's actually gives you a competitive advantage if you have a fourth line that sucks.
Yeah, that's fair. I think mainly what it does is that it allows you to play your guys later in the game and have them fresh. And so I think that rolling four lines is something I'd like to see done early on in a game to midway through the game, and then kind of late is where you would want to start playing your bigger guys some more minutes. And that is where rolling four lines early you can see the benefit from that.
If you want to roll four lines, that's fine. Just have a good fourth line.
Fair.
So that is not really applying to the Ducks right now. I mean, I know everyone. It's funny because Rowney, Grant, and Delorier, where do they rank on this team in terms of popularity? They have to be in the top 10, right?
Derek
top
Grant
5.
definitely does. Nicola
Delorier's, I mean, after the scrap he had against McDermott, and even Carter Rowney, I think is pretty popular. I don't know.
I think Rowney's the least of those.
Yeah, he is definitely. It's Grant, Delorier, and then Rowney, third by a wide margin. Yeah. But people just love those guys, and I mean, I get it. They're entertaining. Grant scores goals. Delorier punches people in the face, and Rowney just has that smile, that gap tooth smile that just everybody loves. So I get it, but in terms of their on ice results, not so great.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're done here.
Yep. I think we've hit our stopping point.
All right, folks. Well, hey, thank you so much for listening and submitting your questions if you're in the live stream. Just as a reminder, if you want to support the show further, if you enjoy what we do here, well, I'm going to give you a couple of ways to do that. So we've got a Patreon page, patreon.com/acpod. That's where for $1 a month, you can join us in our patrons-only Discord chat. So during the games, we go back and forth talking about the game, trade rumors, complaining about commentators. We do it all in the Discord chat. It's a lot of fun.
Unfiltered.
And for $1 a month, I mean, if you don't really because for me, when I'm watching a sporting event, I like to talk about it, which is maybe why I have Twitter.
But Twitter is different.
But so if you don't have anyone that's like a diehard fan that's not into it like you are, well, you have friends in our Discord chat. So I definitely recommend doing that. And then for $5 a month, you still get access to the chat, but you also get access to 2 bonus episodes a month. And so really what we do, I think we've kind of gotten into a sweet spot there. We talk about the rest of the NHL. We go pretty in depth on the rest of the league, looking at different teams, doing rankings. It's a lot of fun. I think honestly, it could be a standalone podcast on its own. But lately, maybe just due to all the Star Wars that's been coming out, we've also been talking a lot about Star Wars. And I believe there's a new movie coming out next week. Could be mistaken.
Thursday.
The Rise of Skywalker.
I just realized I need to finish Return of the Jedi, watch The Force Awakens, and watch The Last Jedi before Thursday.
Having a movie called Return of the Jedi and then 2 movies later called The Last Jedi, a little redundant.
They're like 15 years apart.
Yeah, so they had 15 years to not be redundant, and they still couldn't do it. Anyway,
that's the whole point.
Anyway, so that's there's your little preview of what that sounds like. It's a lot of fun. We also talk about The Mandalorian. If you've been watching that, I'm finally caught up on it. Thank goodness. So yeah, that's $5 a month.
Wait, did you watch Friday's episode?
Yes, I did.
New episode Wednesday.
Huh?
New episode Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Wow, we're going to have a lot to talk about on this next Patreon episode. And then finally, though, if you don't want to spend any money, it's the holidays, you've got to buy your gifts. I hear you there. I'm bracing my wallet as we speak. But you can simply leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show in terms of exposure, making sure that we're showing up on those search results. It also just lets us know how we're doing. It gives us some good feedback, and we always make sure to read your review out loud on the show if it's a good one. Sometimes people get in there and just kind of drop some bombs, and we'll address them, but we can't always necessarily read them out loud. So as long as it's PC friendly and it's kind of constructive, then we will get to it for sure. So yeah, that's at just search up Anaheim Calling or search Anaheim Ducks on Apple Podcasts. Now, other ways that you can get your fix, AnaheimCalling.com, at Anaheim Calling on Twitter. If you're not an Apple listener, you can always find us on Spotify, on Stitcher, and on YouTube. Jake is on Twitter at ReindeerGames91. I'm not going to read his tweets out loud today because I think I may have crossed a line there. And so I'm just going to stay away from that. I'm just going to stay away from that. I'm on Twitter at Felix_Sicard. I have an article up that finally just posted over at the fourth period, pretty much talking about this exact topic here, the Ducks blue line getting better. No, not Star Wars. The Anaheim Ducks. So yes, definitely go check that out. And again, just keep it locked into our podcast here. So that's going to do it for us. We have 4 Ducks games next week, so I think we're probably going to go. I don't think we're going to do 4 shows because it's 2 sets of back-to-backs, but we'll make it work.
Yeah, I think the plan that we're going to do is we're going to do 2 shows next week.
Yeah, one show for each. Yeah, back-to-back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially with these games being earlier, if you're here on the West Coast, like a lot of our listeners are. 2 matinee affairs, by the way, next weekend, 10 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. So set your alarm clocks if you're a late riser like I am. So that will do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you at the next show. Talk to you then.
Bye.